Ее завка автора перевода языковых коммуникаций ФИА. Презентация будет на английском языке, но буду очень рад вашему активному участию. И вопросы, конечно, вы можете задавать как на английском, так и на русском языке. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to speak before you today. And our topic is challenges and transformations in English language teaching. If we look at the background to what is going on right now in the sphere of English language teaching, we see three main influences. The first of which is globalization. If we think about how globalization has influenced English language teaching, I think we don't have to be very clever to understand the effect that it's had. We'll talk about that in a little greater detail in a moment. The second is technological development. We understand, of course, that as technology develops, the ways and means that we use in teaching English also develop with time. And the third, the elephant in the room, COVID. The COVID situation, of course, has had a dramatic effect in connection with both of these two previous factors that we spoke about. But of course, how this will develop and how it has already changed English language teaching is something that we need to consider closely. If we think about globalization, we have a question. In a world of Englishes, whose English do we teach? We understand that if we look at English language teaching, it might seem simple to say that we teach the language, but of course, language differs, and it differs in terms of culture and of course geographical location as well. In a purely operational point of view, we have different accents, for example, we have different vocabulary and also different grammar as well, depending on which English-speaking country we are talking about. So do we teach British English? Do we teach American English? Do we teach other Englishes, Canadian, Australian, African variants of English, and so on? What do we concentrate on? And that's an important question that no one has really resolved to anyone's, or at least to universal satisfaction. At the same time, though, we understand that if we look at English as international language, as the world's only current lingua franca, we understand that we might, in some cases, even teach English divorced of culture of English-speaking countries. Whether that is a good or a bad thing, that's a question that I will leave for another occasion. We have the question, who should teach English? Should it be only native speakers? Should it be people who have special qualifications? Should it be people who choose one variety of English over another, and so on? It's another important question we need to ask. Does the quality of our English language teaching depend, perhaps, on who teaches English? And of course, we have the question, who should learn English? Should we all learn English? Is English important for everyone to know or speak? And if not, then how do we decide who learns English? Should English be taught only in schools, in every school, in some schools, in every country, in some countries? Should English be compulsory at university level? Indeed, should English be compulsory in kindergartens? These are all questions, again, that people have been asking. And again, the answer is unclear. Should English be learned by adults who are already working professions? Is English necessary just for businessmen or people collaborating in a particular professional sphere? Or should taxi drivers also speak English? Should security guards speak English? Do cleaners need to speak English? And so on. Cafe staff, waiters, waitresses. Who knows? And of course, we have the question, in a globalized climate, how to teach and learn English. In a globalized situation, we understand that English can be taught not only within the walls of a classroom and within the limits of a particular country or geographical location. We understand that English can be taught in a wide variety of ways. We could have people joining us today who are currently in different countries. I hope we do. How do we teach when people are in different locations? How do we teach in a globalized atmosphere? And of course, how do we learn English as well? It's also a question. But these questions lead us on neatly to the question of technological development. If we look at technological development, again, there are certain points that are raised. The first, content. If we talk about the content, we understand that technological development gives access to a great many more resources than were once possible. If we go back even 15 to 20 years in the classroom, even 10 years, typically we used only a textbook, maybe some audio resources, perhaps some authentic resources, but typically written texts, newspapers and so on, maybe the odd film, sometimes some audio as well. Now though, in terms of content, technological developments give us great access to essentially anything on the internet, which of course is not limited just to the written word, but we can talk about films, video, audio, all kinds of different content. We can, of course, have content in terms of live dialogue, almost like we're having now. This is also content. And we understand, therefore, that technological developments give us much greater choice. But of course, with that choice, we have to make decisions then. What do we use? And most importantly, what do we discard? What don't we use? Again, it's not always clear what we should or should not be using. And there's a question of methods as well. We're no longer restricted to a teacher in the classroom or some kind of audio guide or book that we use. Now we can use a great many more methods. We understand that. There are all kinds of different technologically based platforms and so on that we use. Should we use these platforms or not? How good are they? Can platforms replace teachers? That's a question that many, many people are interested in. Audience as well. As technology develops, does our audience change? Of course it does. We can talk about audience in two particular aspects. Firstly, our audience becomes more global, unrestricted by geographical boundaries. I have taught people not only here in Tomsk, but in Novosibirsk, in Moscow, even in California, in many places. In a couple of days, I'll be teaching some people in France while being here in Tomsk. So our audience dramatically increases. Also, of course, with technology, the audience changes in terms of how accepting they are, again, of teaching methods. Our audience becomes more technologically adept. If we're talking about, for example, the adaptations of generations to technology as well, we understand that in terms of how generations adapt, if we're dealing with adult learners, perhaps not so quickly. But if we're talking about teaching teenagers, then again, technological developments must be taken into account. It's very difficult to involve at least Western teenagers in an English language teaching classroom if you don't have some use of technological developments. Teachers as well, as technology develops, teachers also have to develop. When we all went online, it was difficult for some of our teachers to adapt to Zoom. We understand that using technology in teaching is not always straightforward. And again, we need to keep our skills updated and ensure that we are using the technology that we have at our disposal. So we see all these particular things have a great impact on how ELT is challenged, but also transformed. And then, of course, we come to COVID. And COVID raises so many questions. Isolationism versus globalization. On the one hand, in lockdown, we've all been isolating. On the other hand, although we are isolating from those people who are geographically closest to us, and also, of course, we're not traveling as much as we used to, at the same time, technology allows us to globalize in ways that were never thought possible before. But that raises so many questions. Methods, for example, what methods are most appropriate? Speaking about online learning, how do we ensure the quality is not damaged? How do we take advantage of what we have? Audience. Of course, our audience is no longer face-to-face. That changes the way we teach as well. On the other hand, our audience becomes more global. Teachers as well, again, teaching methods have to adapt. We're no longer face-to-face in the classroom. On the other hand, we can now teach globally. So we see that the COVID situation has really raised a lot of important issues and created some very interesting opportunities. How to transform, therefore, if we're looking at, for example, a traditional ELT classroom where people are face-to-face, what can we think about in terms of transforming our education today? Online learning, for example, is particularly important. We understand that online learning does create certain advantages, but also poses certain problems. If we take a look at what online learning means for ELT, we can see certain pros. Firstly, of course, audience reach. This is particularly important for any organizations that teach English, but for language, whether it's a language school or a university or even a secondary school, we understand that audience reach is now global. Online learning has become more practical in many particular senses. In terms of brand as well, through reaching a global audience, we understand that universities can promote themselves very effectively as leaders in online quality education, and so can language schools. Economy is also an advantage. Online learning has typically low expenses, apart from the set of technology and internet access. Essentially, office space is no longer a requirement, and this of course leads to high profitability, especially since our audience has dramatically increased. At the same time, however, we understand that there are various cons. And those cons are, of course, when you have any kind of distance learning, there can be asynchronous contact, which is a problem in terms of teacher-learner interaction, and also a lack of social contact. Again, a significant problem for learners, especially from a psychological point of view, but also for teachers as well. And then there is the issue of quality control, defining our aims and learning outcomes. If our aims are not defined, if we don't think about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're getting there, then of course, we can't talk about quality learning outcomes. Another important aspect that we need to think about in terms of transforming our language education is that of partnerships. Partnerships here can be with a variety of different organizations, partnerships between universities, partnerships with learning platforms, for example. All these things are of great advantage to us. And we see the partnerships give us certain important advantages. If done rightly, they are effective and efficient, combining the strengths of different organizations. If we look at audience reach as well, again, the same with online learning, global, practical, and brand. Partnerships enable us to reach a large audience. They're very practical in terms of doing so. And of course, if we partner with decent institutions, then it only enhances our brand. Just recently, we signed a contract with Moscow State Linguistic University. That's a very good example of how two strong institutions can come together to improve and advance language learning. But of course, partnerships come with their disadvantages as well. Again, the same as with online learning. They involve, in many aspects, asynchronous contact, and again, a lack of social contact. Partnerships, when the institutions are in different places, need hard work in order to maintain their strengths. Quality control, again, becomes important. Who is responsible for what, and how do we effectively ensure that our learners are achieving their aims in both places? And if we're talking about a multiple partnership, then again, this only complicates things. What therefore might the future entail? If we look at the practice at our Faculty of Foreign Languages at Tom State University, we look very much towards the future and consider what the best way might be to improve our education system, and also in particular the education that we provide to those people at our faculty. And here I'd like to talk to you about our Global Masters in ELT Leadership, which is an innovative program for future leaders in ELT, and as I like to describe it, unparalleled in ambition, unimpeded by geography, and uncompromising in quality. And this program will launch for the first time in September of this year. And if any of you are interested in developing as future leaders in ELT, I'll be very glad to see you on this program. What does the program involve? In terms of content, we're talking about 2 tracks with a common thread. In the first semester, the basic modules will acquaint you with the latest innovations in English language teaching. And then you have a choice of 2 tracks. The first track is for what we might call advanced classroom practitioners. These are people who want to become experts in a particular aspect of ELT. For example, teaching academic English or curriculum design, teaching English for specific purposes, and so on. Or becoming, for example, a teacher trainer, also a very important and much more promising profession than perhaps it was just 10 or 20 years ago. The second track is for those who want to become managers, leaders, academically and of course administratively in ELT. People who want to become, for example, directors of language schools or entrepreneurs in ELT, or perhaps managers in some language learning departments. Of course, it's possible to combine modules from both tracks and therefore get the best of both worlds. Methods. It truly is a global program. The program will be offered 100% online in partnership with Coursera. We understand that, again, partnerships not only with other universities, but with international learning platforms are particularly advantageous, ensuring that content is delivered to our students in the best, most effective, and most efficient possible way. Audience. The audience, therefore, is truly global. Anyone in any country with internet access is able to apply for the course. And of course, in terms of accessibility of education, we are doing our best to keep the cost of the program as low as possible, although it is an international elite program, and therefore we hope that as many people as possible will be able to join the program without being financially restricted from doing so. And then, of course, in terms of teachers, we are proud to have not only our teachers at Tomsk, but an international teaching staff. We have people from Moscow, Oxford, Shanghai, Sheffield, and Stockholm on the program. People experienced in different spheres, people experienced in both university teaching and school teaching, people who have experience of setting up their own businesses and becoming managers in ELT. We're talking about practical experts, people who really understand what they're talking about and can impart their knowledge to you. So for people who want to be future leaders, this program is, I would say, ideal. not to mention that it's the first such program in the world. If anyone's interested in receiving more information about the program, we have a landing page on our university website. The page is still being developed, so please forgive me if not all the information is quite ready yet. But for any information that you would like, you're welcome to email me, and I will be glad to help you and advise you on what the possibilities are. But of course, I do hope that you will have questions for me now, and we can discuss not just the program, but of course, but about how ELT is and has changed in recent years. If we wanted a clever conclusion, I'm afraid you might be disappointed. The only conclusion in the current circumstances could be that our success will depend on our ability to maximize opportunities and minimize negatives. That requires hard work, but I'm glad to say that at our faculty, we have colleagues who are well prepared to tackle the future of ELT, and I think we are well placed to help our learners to do so as well. And on that positive note, I would like to thank you for your kind attention, and I do hope that there are questions that you have that you would like to ask. So, please, who would like to be first? Anyone? You can ask questions verbally, you can ask in the chat, and as I said, you can ask questions in English and of course in Russian as well. Так, неужели нет вопросов? Ну, или все понятно, или всем скучно? Anyone? No? Well, I do hope that everything was relatively clear. And again, it remains only for me to thank you for your attendance today. I hope that you did find the information useful. And if anyone wishes to contact me, then hopefully you have saved my details and you can be in touch. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you, Alyona, for your feedback. And Daria, it's good to know that everyone didn't fall asleep while I was speaking. And I do hope that I will see some or all of you among our applicants for our program. And of course, those of you who might be a bit younger and looking for a bachelor's program, we do have such programs at our faculty, and I can certainly recommend that you apply to them. So thank you very much, and goodbye.